No one played with the billionaire's one-legged daughter. The playgrounds were full of laughter, but never hers. While other children chased bubbles and dreams, little Isabella Rayner, daughter of billionaire hotel magnate Thomas Rayner, sat on the edge of the sandbox with her crutch pressed against her shoulder, pretending not to notice the whispers. Her mother had died in childbirth, and an accident at age 6 took her leg. The world looked at her as fragile porcelain, too precious to touch, too broken to play with. She smiled through it all, that kind of smile that hurts to look at because it tries too hard to hide the loneliness behind it. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the beauty of the human heart, take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to this channel, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Because what you're about to hear isn't just a story, it's a reminder of how love, compassion, and courage can change lives in ways money never could. Every day, Isabella's father watched her from his office window, a man who had everything except peace. His company stretched across continents, his name was printed on skyscrapers, but his heart was chained by guilt. He blamed himself for her accident. It happened when his driver had rushed to a meeting he demanded not be late for. He buried himself in work, convinced that providing luxury would heal what love had broken. But nothing ever did. Isabella's room was full of dolls she never touched and dresses she never wore. Her world was silent, until one summer afternoon when a man named Daniel Carter walked into their lives. Daniel was no billionaire. He was a mechanic, a single father struggling to raise his 7-year-old son, Ethan, after losing his wife to cancer 2 years earlier. Life had bruised him, but it hadn't made him bitter. He worked hard, smiled often, and treated everyone with the same gentle decency his wife had loved him for. When Thomas Rayner's car broke down on a rural road outside the city, Daniel was the one who fixed it. While the billionaire stayed on the phone barking orders, Daniel quietly wiped grease off his hands and gave Ethan a bottle of water from his truck. He had no idea who the man was, he just helped because that's who he was. Impressed by Daniel's honesty, Thomas offered him a job as the family's personal mechanic. Daniel hesitated but agreed. It was steady work, and he needed it. The mansion where Isabella lived was breathtaking, marble floors, fountains, chandeliers, but it felt empty, like a museum built to impress ghosts. When Daniel and Ethan arrived for the first time, Isabella was sitting in the garden, reading. Ethan, full of energy, ran straight to the swing set, his laughter filling the air. Isabella looked up, startled by the sound, and for the first time in a long time, someone didn't look at her leg, he just looked at her. Ethan waved, smiled, and shouted, "Wanna play?" She froze. No one had asked her that since she was 6. Her instinct was to refuse, to protect herself from the sting of pity, but Ethan didn't wait for an answer. He ran over, held out his hand, and said, "You can sit, I'll push the swing." Something inside her cracked open. That small moment became the beginning of something extraordinary. Every day after Daniel finished his work, Ethan would ask if he could play with Isabella. At first, the billionaire's staff tried to stop it. They said the girl was too fragile, too important. But Thomas noticed something he hadn't seen in years, his daughter laughing. So he said nothing. He watched from his office window again, but this time the sound of her laughter filled the air he used to breathe in silence. As the days passed, Isabella started to change. The girl who once hid behind her books now painted, played, and told stories to Ethan under the big oak tree. She told him how she dreamed of walking again without fear, of feeling the grass beneath both feet. Ethan told her she didn't need 2 legs to be amazing, that superheroes came in all shapes, and maybe hers just wore a crutch. Daniel would watch them, smiling quietly, his heart healing a little too. He'd lost his wife and thought the world had stopped holding beauty, but in that garden, he saw it return. Thomas Rayner, however, struggled with what he felt. Seeing Daniel and Ethan in his home, simple, kind, and unpretentious, made him realize how far he'd drifted from what mattered. He was ashamed that a stranger had done for his daughter what all his money never could. But instead of jealousy, he felt gratitude. He began spending more time at home, learning to listen, not lecture. Slowly, his walls began to crumble, then one day, tragedy almost took everything again. A heavy storm rolled in one evening while the children were playing outside. Lightning struck a tree near the garden, and part of it collapsed, trapping Isabella beneath a branch. Daniel rushed through the rain, lifting it with all his strength as Thomas arrived moments later. Together, they freed her, and Daniel carried her inside, soaked, trembling, but alive. That night, Thomas realized how much Daniel meant to their lives. He wasn't just a mechanic, he was the man who gave his daughter her childhood back. Weeks later, Isabella got a new prosthetic leg, lighter and stronger than before. Daniel and Ethan were there when she took her first steps. The look on her face, half fear, half pure courage, was something none of them would ever forget. She stumbled, fell, and laughed. Thomas, watching, felt something break loose in his chest. For the first time, he cried, not out of pain, but out of pride. The friendship between the two families deepened. Thomas began supporting Daniel's small auto shop dream, insisting it be a partnership, not charity. Daniel refused at first, but Thomas said something he hadn't said to anyone in years: "You taught me what giving really means." And from that day on, they weren't employer and employee, they were family. Years later, when Isabella turned 18, she stood on a stage at a children's hospital her father had built in her name. Her prosthetic leg gleamed beneath her dress as she told the story of a boy who once pushed her on a swing and a man who taught her father how to love again. The crowd stood, clapping, not for the billionaire's daughter, but for the girl who refused to give up, who turned her pain into purpose. That if this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. It helps us spread more stories of hope and kindness to people who need to hear them most. And before we end, tell us in the comments below, have you ever met someone who changed your life in a way you never expected? Your story might just inspire someone else tonight, because sometimes, the richest hearts are found not in mansions, but in people who show up when no one else will. And sometimes, all it takes to heal a broken soul is one single act of kindness.